In 1964, Ford Motorsports Racing partnered with one of the only Americans to ever win the Le Mans in France, Carroll Shelby. Ford v Ferrari is a biopic that follows Shelby's pursuit in making American-made cars the fastest racing cars in the world. This action sports thriller highlights the true character of Carroll Shelby, the passion for racing within Ken Miles, and the bureaucracy within major American corporations. Hello and welcome to Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review films old and new, the ones you don't like and the ones you do. I'm your host, Kael McCall. Across the table sits my co-host, Garrett and today we're taking a look at Ford v Ferrari 5 years later.
Directed by James Mangold, director of great films such as Logan, Walk the Line, The Wolverine, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And with a stellar cast like Christian Bale, who plays Ken Miles, Matt Damon, who plays Carroll Shelby, and Katrina Balfe, who plays Molly Miles, we're going to start off with some spoiler-free thoughts. What are yours?
So, my thing about this movie is that it feels real. These characters feel real. Ken Miles is a farce of a man who really does what he wants when he wants. I love watching his character. Christian Bale brings this to life. Matt Damon's amazing in this film and is not to be overlooked. The acting's great. The editing is outstanding. I would argue this is one of my favorite edits of a film. It's just its own art, and it really takes over. Screen Rant called this one of the most accurate biopics of all time, and as I was researching this video and looking at the Le Mans and everything, I realized this film has all the facts. Before I end my spoiler-free thoughts, I figured I would cap it off with this. This film was nominated for Best Sound Editing, Best Film Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Picture at the Oscars. It won Best Film Editing, and it won Best Sound Editing.
To piggyback on a lot of the things that you just said, I mean, you've got this amazing cast that plays in, and especially Christian Bale. I have yet to see a Christian Bale role that isn't absolutely phenomenal. But this role, and seeing him just be such a lively, real person, especially in the scenes with his wife.
Yeah.
It just feels so nice. That first scene with Ken and Molly, this just feels like you're seeing a couple go about their day in real life. They capture something so special in a sports film, which in a biopic that's great, but I feel like in sports films on their own, you get such a nice, personal feeling with something that captures real life this well.
Yeah, sports is something that easily relates to real life between winning and losing, kind of. And we see that in our daily lives, but I'll piggyback off of what you said about Molly's character and their scenes. This first scene is incredible. I think it's pretty spoiler-free. She walks in to his shop acting like a customer, and you don't learn until halfway through the scene that this is his wife. Mm-hmm. And just kind of these things where the editing, the writing, the cinematography just kind of takes over and immerses you into a scene that ends up making you laugh or gives you a thrill. Like every scene in this film gives you some kind of emotion. And from here on out, I think we're pretty much ready to take this into the spoiler zone, so here's your warning. And yeah, it's just amazing. I'll go ahead and segue us into talking about the cinematography of the film. It's one of those things where I look back and I was semi-shocked that I didn't see this in one of its Oscar categories because I love the way the races are shot. In this opening scene with Carroll Shelby, we cut back and forth between a POV shot from the very center front of his car to a POV shot of almost his windshield looking at him, this close up on his face, and you were just experiencing the race with him. Later in the film, we get this same kind of cinematic style with Ken, but his is a little off kilter. At times we get a POV from his right headlight or his left headlight, and we've got him from this skewed angle in the car. And I think it's conveying that, Carroll Shelby's more of this classic racer, this level-headed guy kinda, while Ken Miles will turn around and throw a wrench at your head if he disagrees with what you're saying. He just is this kind of off-kilter man who knows who he is. And I like getting his viewpoint a little bit skewed from Matt Damon.
Exactly how Christian Bale portrays this character. From
yeah.
the very first scene, you see him yelling at a guy because he's like, "You have a sports car. You don't drive it." And he's like, "You're not going to tell me how to drive my car." And he's like,
"This isn't your car."
"Nope." And then you've got that difference of kind of upstanding Carroll Shelby, and he's like, "My name is Carroll Shelby, and I sell cars." And he's like, like it's, you've got the film in itself tells you their characters without ever having to see them.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of that and say it only makes a scene later in the film so much better. You see these conflicting personalities, and it's not that they're fighting very often. It's just that one person does things this way, the other person does things this way. But when they do fight, it makes for one of the best scenes in this film. And Katrina Balfe only makes this scene better when she comes in, giving her strong performance in this film as well. As we've talked about, you only get to see her and Ken together like 3 or 4 times during the film, but you wouldn't even think of that as a low amount just because of how strong she is every time she's on screen. And her and Ken and their son Peter, following their family, the acting is so good, they feel like a family, you care about them like a family. It being so well written, so well acted, just leans into some of the emotions that they're putting forth on you, like the end of the film. For one, when Carroll Shelby comes to talk to Molly just to give his condolences, and he ends up giving Peter the wrench, and you just kind of have this moment where it's like, oh man, the buildup of these characters has led us to this super emotional moment at the end, and that just doesn't happen without these stellar performances given.
Absolutely. And backtracking a little bit, just to talk about kind of that specific scene of their fight, I like the scene the most with them probably is her speeding down the road. She's like, "I don't know what you're not telling me, but I saw you do something and you're going to tell me." Yeah. And he's like, I'm kind of freaking out. But throughout the whole scene, or throughout the whole film, he is this like, "I'm in control, I'm doing this, I'm doing this." But yeah, he can be so reserved. And I love that scene of them fighting because she just whips out a lawn chair and's like, "All right, they're going to do this." And then at the end, she's like, "I guess I'll go to the store. Y'all need something." Getting into, the family. I feel like this, on top of being a sports film, and particularly a thriller film, it's a family film. The dynamic between Carol and the Miles family is amazing.
Yeah.
They sit there and they have that whole fist fight, and then they just lay on the grass and they're like, "Oh man, I guess it is what it is." It feels like a scene of 2 brothers getting in an argument. And to top it off, the young actor for Peter, amazing performance throughout the film. From the beginning where he's just watching his dad, and he's just got that excitement to him, to when he goes and takes his old trophies out of the trash because he feels like he's going to be done. There is a gleam in that young actor's eyes that just makes you hope for Ken throughout the entire film.
I'm going to go ahead and segue us into talking about the editing a little bit, because I think the editing and the cinematography pair so well together. There are these moments in the race, I know it happens in Daytona, or no, it happens in Ken's first race, and then it happens again in the Le Mans, where you're cutting back and forth between Ken and Matt Damon, Carroll Shelby, and Carroll Shelby is racing through Ken. He's wait, past him, and then Ken shifts gears, it cuts back. The way it cuts back and forth between them is just electric. It just tickles your brain just a little bit. The coordination between what's going on in Carroll Shelby's head versus what's going on with Ken Miles' hands, and the way it's cutting back to these close-ups on Carroll, to these skewed close-ups on Ken, his hands shifting the gears, he's tugging on the steering wheel. It's just masterfully done. These scenes are perfect demonstrations of writing, cinematography, and editing pairing together. You can look at all types of Oscar-winning films, and I promise you not all of them do it on this level. But I think I'm ready to move past the cinematography, the editing, and the acting and talk about the story of this film kind of as a whole. Mm-hmm. This is the story of Ford, Carroll Shelby, but more importantly, I think Ken Miles is your kind of hidden hero of this film, the guy who doesn't end up winning the Le Mans. And I think this film speaks in a couple different themes. We obviously, family, like you said, is the core theme of this film. And I want to relate it to victory as well. Victory and, taking punches, taking losses is kind of a theme of this film. Is victory the only thing that matters? Is kind of a question posed in this film, because Ken does lose in the end, and everybody's still really happy for him. He seems to be, he's pissed off when he's walking off the track, but he's fine after losing the Le Mans. Ken Miles' historic racing year, I was looking into it, is still considered one of the best racing years of all time, and Ken was put into the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America for that year. His victory in the 24 Hours of Daytona, his win in the 12 Hours of Sebring, and placing second place in the 24 Hours of Le Mans was truly historic, and it's an awesome feat to watch just in the film. Watching him go through these races, seeing his progression to becoming this dude who can win a race with this shit car, to taking a Ford car and destroying everybody with it. You get this awesome scene where Ford's kind of not letting him drive the car like he wants to, and Carroll Shelby walks out to the track and holds up 7,000 plus RPM, give it hell. And you see that he is just far superior to anybody else on the track. And you love this story of greatness, but I think it's even more powerful to see Ken lose everything at the end of the film, even his life. But we look back, and when Ken Miles is brought up, nobody really says, oh, he was a great racer, but he never won the Le Mans. No. Ken Miles was a true victor because of his accomplishments, his family, and just the relationships he makes throughout the film.
One of the undertones of this film that really struck with me was seeing this kind of back and forth between Ken, someone that they called a beatnik, and that they were like, he's just some, scrub. He's not this winner Carroll Shelby.
And then they even say, he wins the race, you throw a mic on him, and we've done something he doesn't like, he's going to talk about it.
They were like, he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. One of the things they tried to do to undercut him in the film was like, hey, we want you to slow down so we can get this picture. And in doing that, because Ken was a good man that they had talked terribly about throughout the entire film, he did it. And they got their picture. And it screwed him out of the first place, even after setting world records. And I just think that is such a beautiful undertone of this film that I feel like isn't very talked about.
Yeah, no, I agree, because on my first viewing of the film, I didn't really think about that at all. I was so kind of sucked into the racing aspect that I did think about it, but I didn't think about it as one of the main themes of this film.
Overall, touching on all the themes we talked about, touching on the phenomenal acting, the phenomenal writing, which based off of a beautiful life that real people lived, and how well the filmmakers exemplified that life, I give this film an 8.5. I think it is of my at least top 15 films. It is a beautiful watch with an amazing director and a great cast.
Between everything we've talked about in this film and using the technical aspects of film to make your story and your film just so beautiful as this is, I'm going to give this score the highest score that we've ever given a film on SCS before. This is going to be a 9.5 out of 10 for me, and I'll justify that for just a second. Because I can't justify taking 2 points, 1.5 points off of this film. The Oscars have recognized it as one of the best films to come out of its year. Rotten Tomatoes points it at a 92. IMDb rates it criminally low at an 8.1. I think I'm crazy for giving a film that score, but I love this movie. It's probably one of my favorite films of all time. And the fact that it's a biopic and it's so accurate too, it's like you can't take points away for the writing. So yeah, it's a 9.5 for me. We hope you enjoyed our review of Ford v Ferrari 5 years later. I can't even believe that this film came out 5 years ago. You would not know that by watching it. We hope you enjoy our series, Studio Cinema Saturday, here at Studio 24. We love sitting down to talk about these movies with you guys. Television Tuesday, we sit here and do the same exact thing, but we talk TV on a Tuesday. Our short films are what we're really aspiring to do here. It's our favorite things we get to sit here and make as our own movies. So go ahead and check out some of our short films. We'll see you there.